This is the Radio Silly Video News, brought to you in association with Worldwide Financial Planning. For advice on inheritance tax, business finance, mortgages, debt consolidation, investment and pensions, Matt Hyam from Worldwide Financial Planning is on the islands at the Atlantic Hotel on the first Thursday of every month. The Radio Silly Video News also brought to you in association with Truro and Penwith College. Find out about courses you can enjoy here on the islands or on the mainland at truro.ac.uk and listen out for one of 365 great reasons to visit Truro College every day on Radio Silly. One of the early members of the Radio Silly team, Pete the Hat Hobson, sadly passed away last year. Pete, known to many people on the islands and visitors for his passion and enthusiasm about so many things, from music to his perfumery to some long shaggy dog stories he used to share in the pubs. And recently arranged by Shirley McGuinness a get-together at Atlantic Inn where people who are friends of Pete the Hat shared some anecdotes and memories about a character that islanders and visitors won't forget easily. Here are their stories. One night, actually, he terrified, when he was seeing Ingrid, he terrified her. It was Halloween. And Pete had found this CD I had of horror sound effects. It was all BBC theatre sound effects, really bad chains rattling and ghostly winds, and he just decided to play it when they were living in the Tregarthen staff house on full pelt, and Ingrid was virtually in tears. She said, "It's frightening me," and I thought, it's a CD, how can it frighten you? And it was just one of those things that Pete was bent over double laughing at the naughtiness of it, and there was a lot of that used to go on, which was great fun.
We used to belong to a group of us. We used to go off island on Tuesday nights. And I remember one night we all gathered down the quay with Fraser and the King Sea King, and off we went, and everybody was saying, "Well, where's Pete?" And all Fraser said, "Oh, he's already gone." So we all trooped up to Tresco and went on past the quay and up to Cromwell's Castle. And when we got there, we all struggled off into the punt and went off to the castle and clambered over the rocks. And after the humongous effort of getting there, who we greeted by was Pete, all dressed up, doing waiter service. He'd got a massive spread, lovely buffet for us, glasses of wine, and we were treated like kings of the castle, and he was the servant. And it was an absolutely fantastic evening, beautiful summer's evening. And the sunset set, and it was such a lovely setting, and it's one of the evenings everybody remember.
Now, if you got onto a subject that wasn't Pete's subject, well, you're on dodgy ground then, you see. So I'm talking about the test match one day. Well, let's see how the day's play went at Old Trafford, England to 309 for 6. And Pete was looking at me as if I was talking about something off the moon, And it's nice to get a bit of feedback, isn't it, when you're talking to someone in the radio station. And I said, "Oh, well, someone batted very well today." And Pete, with impeccable time, and just let it go a few seconds, and he said, "How intriguing, Where'd you go from there, So I said, "Pete, if you listen, you might learn something, jocularly kind of thing." But you could get a good bit of banter with Pete, because he had a humour about him, and he understood where you were coming from, but he could also kill you stone dead. But I've got some great memories of working with Pete. It was good fun. Top man.
Sawyer told me her boy Josh was working for Andrew May, and Pete the Hat was working up there, and they said, "Oh, he's a bit odd, he's a bit strange, you don't want to work with him." So Josh went up and he was next to him picking flowers, and he got really frightened of this guy, and then he got talking to him, and he loved him so much. He said he was the most interesting, nice man who helped him, and he wouldn't have a word said against Pete after that. So it's just nice that youngsters see that side of him as well.
He used to come in here, obviously, had his drink, and he said, "Right, I'm off home now." And I'll say, and he said, "I'm going out backwards." So he'd put his coat on, back to front, 2 sleeves in and everything else. And I said, "Yeah, okay, good night, Pete." And then he would literally walk out the pub backwards, and I thought, "Oh, he'd get out and he's got to go over to him." But he never did, bless him. But he was a lovely man, very lovely man.
I was working in the Mermaid one New Year's Eve, and must have been about 10 years ago, I think. And midnight struck, and Pete was at the bar, and he said, I think it's time to make a resolution, don't you? I said, go on then. He said, I'm going to take up smoking. It's at midnight on New Year's Eve. He took one drag and said, no, throw me away.
And we were staying there one winter, and he was cooking all this Chinese food, and I'd left the islands to go back to the mainland to work at the time, but I think it all ended, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was some kind of I think he had to take it up to what was a lock, stock and barrel, a couple of containers and he didn't put the lids on properly, and on the old town church bend, it all fell into each other, and I can't remember who it was for, but somebody ordered the food. They didn't end up paying. It was the end of the business, really. Apart from that, the environmental health slight technicality. Because the lids came off, and after the Old Town Church bend, they just got a lucky dip Chinese meal, which isn't really what people really want to go for. But that was absolutely priceless, as he.
I didn't read his story, but we used to see him almost every summer evening, didn't we? Going along the garrison with his. With the bongos and his followers and his drinks and
Pete Reynolds and Ricky and all
and you could hear them all singing and playing. It was great, wasn't it? You know, watching the sunset, and that's my sort of favourite memories. Really,
amazing at making stuff, really talented, and he made these. Well, they're just complete rip-offs of Monopoly boards out of really thick, heavy card, and they look like the proper Monopoly squares. And he would have got a suit to high heaven if Hasbro had seen him. But he was selling them, wasn't he? He was making Fredopoly based on the life of Fred Elms. So every square related to Fred. And there was Stephopoly after former landlady here. And he was selling them. And he made the little, like the little cheese and stuff. No, that's Trivial Pursuit. That's it, flip-flops, yeah. All handmade.
There was one Guy Fawkes night that was an absolute washout, pouring with rain, blowing a gale, and I think we took the children to the Mermaid to eat. Pete came in purely with things that he'd bought from the chemist and proceeded to give us an indoor firework display on the bar in the Mermaid. And it was absolutely amazing.
It took place on St Agnes and the Turk's Head. I wasn't there, but I did hear about it. And Pete went over dressed in plus force, as he normally did when he went to an off island, with a deerstalker type of hat on, and with a wicker basket with feathers sticking out of the side. And he kept shaking it as if there was a bird trapped in it. and the people were horrified in the pub what he was doing. He's beating it on the top, kicking it. and in the end, he threw it down and exploded. Feathers were going everywhere. And people then realised that it wasn't actually a bird in there or any wild animal. It was just Pete playing silly buggers.
Good story, Kerry.
Yeah, Dave.
He used to tell me this story going back many years. He went to Covent Garden, the flower market, and he's there at 4 o'clock in the morning when everything's just starting. And this little shady figure appears out of this darkness, And this bloke says to Pete, he says, "Here," he says, "I hear you're the geezer what does the potpourri." So Pete says, "Well, I might be." So he organises a deal to sell this bloke some potpourri. And this bloke is a small-time London, gangster more or less. When Pete drove off with the money, what he thought was the money, the outer layers were £10 notes and the middle was tissue paper. Oh yeah. So mind you, Pete got his own back. He turned the tables on the same bloke soon after. When he had to pay this bloke something, he did the same trick, you see, so that levelled the score, didn't it? Pete did this marvellous impersonation of a small-time London gangster. You can imagine Pete saying that, yeah. "You're the geezer, what does the potpourri?" I mean, it's hardly Queen's English, is it? But that was a great story, that was. It used to amuse me, that one. Full of good stories, Pete. Top man.